Consciousness, the Missing Link is a renowned book, and its author is His Holiness A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. This is my mere try to keep the sanctity of his preaching. In this video, a presentation on this topic. My name is Om Haridas, a disciple with most thrift knowledge in the disciplinic succession of Vaishnava Acharyas in Brahma Madhav Gauriya Sampradaya. I am a student in this Vaishnava line under His Holiness Radha Govinda Goswami Maharaj. My spiritual master and His Grace Ajanma Krishna Das, my spiritual preceptor. All the information that will be given in this topic, Consciousness, the Missing Link, is the final conclusion provided by His Holiness A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. This is very important topic. Understanding this will invoke the genuine reason to read and understand the ultimate book of knowledge, Vedanta, especially ShirmadBhagavatam and ShirmadBhagavatam Mahapurana. The content of this topic, Consciousness, the Missing Link, are: Number 1. Definition of consciousness. Number 2. Modern scientific approach in understanding the factor consciousness. Number 3. Quantum theory of consciousness and its various experimental models. Number 4. Consciousness in the light of Vedanta. Number 5. Consciousness is spiritual energy. Number 6. Different types of consciousness. Number 7. Play of consciousness in living entities. Number 8. Does consciousness affect non-living material bodies? And number 9. Methods to control the extra discharge of consciousness. In cultures throughout the world, people have traditionally believed that the innermost self of each human being is an entity that is distinct from the gross physical body. Many religious authorities have maintained that this self or soul possesses property quite different from those of matter, and that it survives the death of the physical body. Investigators in different fields such as chemistry, biology, psychology, physics, medical have found no clear evidences for the existence of a non-physical conscious entity, although they have been able to make many advances in their efforts to explain the physical phenomena of the body in mechanistic terms. The scientists have adopted the conclusion prematurely. It is indeed true that modern Western science, in its present state of development, has been unable to shed any light on the possible characteristics of the transcendental self. Nonetheless, a genuine science of non-physical self is not only possible but also exists and has been known since time immemorial. This is the science of self-realization expounded in Vedic literature of India, such as ShirmadBhagavad-gitaand and ShirmadBhagavatam. However, they go beyond the limited mechanistic viewpoint and present a detailed description of conscious self and its relation with material body, and that is unrivaled for its clarity and logical coherence. Even though it entails many concepts that lie beyond the scope of current scientific investigation, this description is not simply an arbitrary body of dogma, for it is accompanied by exacting procedure of verification and is of great practical value. As such, the Vedic science of self-realization invites modern scientists to modify and enlarge their scientific worldview. Prana is needed to keep the body alive, just as electricity is needed to work a computer. But like electricity, prana is also not conscious. Therefore, a conscious entity, the mind, is needed to give it direction. However, the mind also is not conscious by itself, but it works on borrowed consciousness. As the moon reveals object by its reflected light from the sun, the mind is constantly undergoing changes, and therefore it cannot be the ultimate reality for only against an unchanging substratum. Change is possible. The unchanging consciousness is called Akhanda Chaitanya or Shuddha Chaitanya, which is at the back of all living things and all happening in the universe, including our own body. It is our real nature. Biologists try to explain consciousness using neuronal activity. Quantum physicists try to explain the collapse of wave function through some interaction of mind or consciousness. However, these theories are inadequate to explain consciousness. It is a type of intuition or energy that has originated from Supreme Source and dwells in all living entities. It exhibits its nature according to the type of body. Its nature is spiritual. Modern physicists, on assuming consciousness as the output of the brain, they proposed many theories to explain consciousness using quantum states. The reason for such theories were: number one, traditional thinking held that the brain was some kind of computer, crunching its way through billions of inputs and each second and outputting consciousness. However, the complex working of brain is found to be too complex to account by a normal deterministic model. Thus, various models have been proposed linking quantum processes and brain function. Number two, physics have difficulty determining when collapse of the wave functions for a set of probabilities into an actual choice take place, leading to some interpretation in which the conscious observer collapses the wave function. Thus, one common feature among the consciousness. However, there were also other scholars who objected such a notion. Researchers hope that quantum uncertainty and non-locality can be linked to complex brain states, and thus could possibly provide an explanation to our experience of free will. Over the recent years, numerous versions of quantum theories of consciousness have been proposed, including Eichler's Icon, Pribram and Bohm's holonomic brain theory, Hammerhoff and Penrose's OR theory, spin-mediated conscious theory, etc. The literature in this area is growing, and I have listed some of the prominent ones in the presentation. These theories and many others along these lines use a range of tools such as wave coherence, quantum computation, quantum spin, chaos, nonlinear dynamic fractal dynamics, electrodynamical resonance, etc., and associate with brain states in an attempt to explain consciousness. Sir John Eccles, a Nobel laureate in physiology and medicine, who devoted his scientific life in the study of mammalian brain, emphasized the entry of quantum effects into brain dynamics in connection with effects at nerve terminals. He explains it elaborately in Institute's Conference on Consciousness organized in San Francisco in 1990. He calls the dendritic bundle as dendrons and defines them as sites where microneural events interact with unitary mental events. He proposed a theory of philosophical dualism and offering a justification how there can be mind-brain action without violating the principle of conservation of energy. The model was developed jointly with nuclear physicist Frederick Beck in the year 1991-92. Eccles called the fundamental neural unit of cerebral cortex dendrons, which are a cylindrical bundle of neurons arranged vertically in 6 outer layers or laminae of the cortex, each cylinder being about 60 micrometer in diameter. Eccles proposed that each of the 40 million dendrons is linked with a mental unit or psychon, representing a unitary conscious experience. In world action and thought, psychons act on dendrons and for a moment increase the probability of firing of selected neurons through quantum tunneling effect in synaptic exocytosis, which is perception of reverse process takes place. The whole mental world is composed of psychons, mental acts, and human perceptual experiences in all these diversities of uniqueness. The transmission of psychon to dendron and dendron to psychon explains the unity of our perception and of inner world of our mind that can continually experience from moment to moment. He further perceives the need of transcendental conscious self-soul, different from body and brain, and added this in his model. He said, we have to recognize that we are a spiritual being with souls existing in a spiritual world, as well as a material being with body and brain existing in a material world. Carl Pribram, an outstanding neurologist from Georgetown University, has proposed the holographic model of brain or holonomic brain theory. Pribram, who is famous for his achievements in neuroscience, worked for 30 years at Stanford University and did pioneering work on the elucidation of cerebral cortex. According to Pribram's holonomic model, which he developed in collaboration with quantum physicist David Bohm, the brain is stored everything in a complex pattern formed by the interference of wave energy, not the firing of individual neurons. Neurons possess branches like little trees, and when an electrical message reaches the end of one of these branches, it radiates outward as does the ripple in the pond. Because neurons are packed together so densely, the expanding ripples of electricity, also a wave-like phenomena, are constantly crisscrossing one another. They create an almost endless kaleidoscopic array of interference patterns, and these interference patterns yield the neural hologram, which is perceptual image. Pribram believes that brain operates according to the same quantum mathematic principles as a hologram. He explains that his world is the somatic sensory auditorial Gabor function. A wave function describes precisely what's going on in our brain. He thus suggests the Eccles psychons is something like Gabor function. Interestingly, like Eccles, Pribram, with over 60 years of leadership and brain research, also perceives a spiritual reality beneath our physical or psychological world. In discussions with him recently, he enthusiastically exclaimed, "My science is exactly who say you talk about the spirit and consciousness." Stuart Hameroff and Roger Penrose have suggested that consciousness arises from quantum physical processes taking place in microtubules, which are protein structure inside the neuron. They have suggested that microtubules are a possible basis for quantum computation using two states of tubulin monomer. in the form of a quantum cellular automation because it displays convenient automate-like structure. Penrose himself mentioned the difficulties in this description. The two problems that most scientists have with these ideas are that number one, it is very difficult to produce quantum mechanical effects that are global in controlled experiments, and more importantly, they only exist at very high temperature. Number two, you can have collective quantum effects like superconductors, superfluids, and Bose-Einstein condensation. But normally, you would have to go to a very low temperature to have these effects. It affects that the brain is at a body temperature which is far too high for such processes. Nature can do many clever things. We know that many things in living system are far beyond that can be achieved in the laboratory. So it doesn't mean that nature is not clever enough to do yet. Some have suggested to solve the hard problems, we need to bring in new tools of physical explanations. Nonlinear dynamics says a new discoveries in neuroscience or quantum mechanics. But these ideas suffer from exactly the same difficulty. Consider a proposal from Stuart R. Hameroff of University of Arizona and Roger Penrose of the University of Oxford. They hold that consciousness arises from quantum physical process taking place in microtubules, which is the protein structure inside neurons. It is possible that such a hypothesis will lead to an explanation how the brain makes decisions or even how it proves mathematical theorems, as Hameroff and Penrose suggest. But even if it does, the theory is silent about how these processes might rise to conscious experience. Indeed, the same problem arises with any theory of consciousness based only on physical processes. Consciousness can never be under the grip of our physical theories, however advanced they are. However, it's an interesting hypothesis and microtubules could be a significant research area for unfolding how consciousness is transmitted to brain. Microtubules possess many interesting properties and could possibly serve many tiny windows to at least uncover how the mysterious consciousness is transmitted to the brain. One cannot rule out the possibility that quantum mechanics and its more advanced future form will help to explain many elements of human cognitive functioning. It may also even provide many more subtle links to consciousness, but there is no hope that it can ever explain consciousness wholly in physical terms. Consciousness or conscious experience can never come under the net of reductive explanations.